my paper throws light on the appropriation of the folklore literature and its problem with reference to Girish Karnad's Nagamandala. Translation has been defined variously at different times in the past. For some, it is a falsifier of the original, or for others, it is a carryover of the meaning from source language to the target language. But for a poet, it is a transference of meaning from source language to the target language. All these definitions are partially true but inadequate to describe the meaning of translation in the full sense of the terms. As cited in Boswell and River, Edward Leach says, folklore is the generic term to designate the customs, beliefs, traditions, tales, magical practices, proverbs, songs, and etc. in the short cumulative knowledge of a homogeneous, unsophisticated people. Folklore reflects culture because it relates to the way of the life of the people who have produced it, and their ceremonies, their institutions, their crafts, and so on. It also expresses their beliefs, customs, attitudes, and their way of thinking. The translation of the folklore, which is believed to reflect the deepest aspects of the culture that produces it, requires a special consideration of the particular culture. The translators have played a significant role in the literature generally. The first and the foremost among these ancient translators who have translated their own works into English has been contributed to the field of the translation. Karnad writes. Karnad is the first writer. He writes his plays first in Kannada and then transcreates them into English. His plays have not only been translated into English but also in some other Indian languages. Mr. Bhatia has spoken all of Karnad's works and his speciality. She, speaking of styles of Karnad, has also stated that Karnad doesn't employ the myths in works entirely but picks up the threads of legends and folk tales that he finds essential. Nagamandala, the topic which I have to deal with, is a story based on two folk tales of Karnataka narrated by the elder women of the family either at the time of the feeding of the children or when they are put to bed. These stories serve as a parallel system communication among the women. The first story relates to a cobra turning into a man at the night and visiting a married woman after assuming her husband's form. The second story is based on the popular belief that a night-long vigil in the temple ward of death, that is Jagarani, what we say. This work brought Girish Karnad Karnataka Sahitya Academy Award. There is also a movie made based on this play with the same name, Nagamandala, directed by T.S. Nagabharana, Prakash Rai, Vijayalakshmi and others being the actors in that. Also a Hindi movie starring Shah Rukh Khan and Rani Mukherjee, directed by Amol Palekar, that is a Paheli, has been originated from this particular Nagamandala. So, in this sense, we can consider this movie as a screen translation of Nagamandala, the another branch of translation. So, dealing with the problems of the translation of the folk literature with reference to the Nagamandala, there are several problems like cultural terms, borrowing of the same term, and translating the proper nouns and others. Cultural terms, many scholars agree with the fact that language is an expression of culture and individuality of the speaker and have hence deeply examined cultural terms as well as the problems involved in the translation when there is a lack of equivalence between the two languages. Here, in the title itself, in the title we can understand this, and in Nagamandala, the play, there is a use of this beru, what she gives to her husband, she has to give to her husband, but she accidentally pours it into the anthill. That beru is the normal term for us to understand, but when this culture has been translated into another language, the reader might not, he might not be able to understand it at the first reading only. Here, the beru in Kannada is translated into as love magical root by Karnad in his English translation. And then comes borrowing. Borrowing is taking a word or expression straight from another language without translation. The procedure is normally used when a term doesn't exist in the target culture, or when the translator tries to get some stylistic or exotic effect. The title of the drama itself, Nagamandala, itself is borrowed from the Kannada folk literature, which literally means the act of two snakes mating or making love is called as Nagamandala in Kannada folk literature. Proper nouns, uses of the proper nouns. Translating the proper nouns is again one of the most difficult tasks in translation of the folklore. Generally in folklore, every proper noun is associated with the symbolism of the literature it depicts. Here the protagonist names Appana, which literally means Appa, father, Anna, brother, represents the entire male community in the society, and Rani represents the entire community of women. And another one more important character, Kurudava, is there, and that character gets this name Kurudava because of her blindness, and it is not so easy to translate Kurudava into English. Rather, it will be making another sense, a different, very difficult sense, which a reader might not be able to understand. So, Girish Karnad retains all the proper nouns as much as possible. He retains those proper nouns in his translation in English. The colloquial expressions. The major task while translating the folklore is that there are many of the colloquial expressions used in the folk literature. In the later part of the drama, in the second part of the drama, Rani, after the intercourse, she says to Naga, Nannannu neevu hengasu madidiri. How can one translate this? She is symbolically, she is speaking this line. When translated literally, it would sound like you made me a woman, which doesn't make sense to some extent when you read it at the first time, or when you don't know the background or the culture of this society. So there are a few problems like this, and then comes the most common problem, that is the lexical problems. Finding the dictionary meaning of the folk literature is a tough job in translation. The dresses, the hair of Rani are compared to the cobra's hair as Nagara Jade. When took the lexical meaning, that is the dictionary meaning, it is translated as cobra's plate, which doesn't make any sense at all. But in spite of all these problems, here Girish Karnad have made it a mark to translate it in a very beautiful manner. Coming to the overview of this paper, the folk literature translators must be aware of the problems arising from this interlingual and intercultural communication. It is indeed of great relevance that translation of folklore texts are crossing of the boundaries between the other and the own, and are representations or transformations of cultural otherness. In spite of all these problems and challenges, as I said, the Nagamandala is considered as one of the best plays of Karnad, as well as one of the best plays in translation, in Indian translation. Hence, from this point of view of folklorists, the translation of folk narratives and folk tales is of greater importance. And let's see, we also could do something in that branch. Thank you.